The Easter account in the Gospel according to Mark ends in a cliffhanger. Jesus' tomb is empty and his body is gone. The women who have come to tend to the corpse are shocked, and a mysterious man claims that Jesus is risen from the dead and instructs the women to go and tell the others. The last verse in Mark's account is this: "The women fled the tomb trembling and bewildered, and they said nothing to anyone because they were too frightened." It's so abrupt and unsettling and incomplete that later copies have a variety of additions borrowing from different resurrection appearances in other gospel accounts. But Mark ends, "They said nothing to anyone because they were too frightened." The possibility of resurrection, especially bodily resurrection, stops most of us in our tracks, and rightly so. Even with extraordinary advances in medical science, there is still an ultimate finality in death. But Jesus, according to Mark and countless others, Jesus is risen from the dead. In 1960, Pulitzer Prize-winning author John Updike wrote a poem called 7 Stanzas on Easter. Make no mistake, if he rose at all, it was as his body. If the cell's dissolution did not reverse, the molecules reknit, the amino acids rekindle, the church will fall. Now, I admit that the white Western church is struggling today. Yet here we are, some 20 centuries later, celebrating resurrection and wrestling with this testimony that Jesus is risen from the dead. Critics think it's foolish. Believers call it faith. Mark simply wrote down his experience and what he saw, and then brings us to a question. What do we think? I understand why the women who were first confronted with the possibility of resurrection said nothing. Some 2,000 years later, it's still frightening to believe in things you can't prove or can't see. Yet this year, people from every tribe and every nation stand with me and others before an empty tomb, and we celebrate resurrection, and we claim it as truth. Now, I acknowledge that it seems foolish, but I also claim it in faith, that Jesus is risen from the dead. Hallelujah, and happy Easter.